Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Ambient Talkie, a show where we dive into some weird and wacky equipment and wonderful, call it whatever you want, music. I'm Andy from 2 Round Robins, and I hope you're ready for a bit of flying mammals. This summer I have fallen into a deep rabbit hole that involves quite particular nocturnal creatures, these being the humble bats. It is quite evident that the discourse regarding these flying creatures took another bad turn in regards to how some people connected them to the start of the pandemic. However, bats are absolutely extraordinary, and in these few talkie episodes, I'll try to explain how we can use the sound they produce in a more artistic environment. So if you would step outside on a warm summer night and see bats flying around foraging on tasty moths and mosquitoes, you might notice that you are not hearing much from them. And that is simply because quite a lot of these insectivorous bats use ultrasonic calls, or so-called echolocation, in order to navigate within their surroundings and also hunt prey. So we as humans hear only up to around 20 kilohertz, while bats produce their calls all from the very edge of human hearing to all the way up to 100 kilohertz or even more in some cases. This is of course dependent on the species, the environment where they are foraging, and if they are echolocating or using social calls, which shush away their competition or attract a mate. So all in all, I could make a very long video explaining how bats use sound to their advantage, but the nick of it is that you have insectivorous bats that use echolocation to navigate and hunt prey. They also use social calls in order to communicate to other bats, and each echolocation and social call type is distinctive to a particular species. So if you want to learn more, I really suggest getting a book such as this. So this is Bat Calls of Britain and Europe by John Russ. And this has become quite handy in identifying species. However, being able to identify bats based on their echolocation and social calls is a huge endeavor and will take lots of time, and I believe that, I'll have to study these far more closely to feel enough confidence that I can for certain identify a species that I'm detecting. So yeah, that's it when it comes to what bat calls are. So you're probably wondering, if bats produce their sound in the ultrasonic range, then how can we record them in order to get certain material that we could use in, let's say, our composition, sound design and whatnot? So there are numerous ways of doing it, and it all really depends on the equipment and budget that you have in mind. But a standard way of hearing and recording a bat is with the aid of the so-called bat detectors. So bat detectors are these small type devices that basically detect the ultrasonic calls, and at times, depending on the mode, will translate these calls into our own hearing range. So let's say, for example, we have the heterodyne detection, which is very simply said, these translate high frequencies sounds into lower frequency, which makes bat calls audible to us, and we can monitor them in real time. This has its advantages and disadvantages when it comes to surveying and identification. But talking strictly out of a more artistic ways of how we can use them, they add interesting percussive sound to our sonic libraries. Another mode is called the frequency division. We can get, let's say, a more clearer preservation of a call with frequency division while still being able to actively monitor and survey the bats. But going with more music lingo, these sounds like a mixture of little chirps and heterodyne claps. And we also have, let's say, full spectrum recording and time expansion. So these are another options that we can use. So basically, it's when we record an environment and we basically push the signal above the 48 kilohertz sample rate, so that it goes way beyond our hearing range. We can slow the files down in post-production by using the time expansion options on some monitor programs, or let's say some more bat call analysis programs, or we can just change the sample rate to a lower value. With this, we are then able to preserve the call in a much higher quality, which is great for further analysis, or to get, those distinctive chirpy sounds that bats may produce with their calls. So yeah. So the one thing that we have to understand here is that we are slowly merging with the field of bioacoustics, acoustic ecology, and acoustic monitoring, meaning that certain tools are more geared towards identifying and monitoring wildlife, so top-notch audio quality might not be in par with the gear that is, let's say, geared towards more audio production or sonic arts. So I would also like to add here that it's totally okay if you go with more affordable options to begin with, as you will see the material gathered through these means are totally doable for further audio manipulation. So question here is, let's say that you're starting out, what's a good choice, where to go in that? Well, I'll recommend a few. So you might ask yourself, where did I start? I started here. In this little pouch by Wildlife Acoustics lies this little thing here that's called Ecometer Touch 2. And it's a small little microphone module that you hook up to your smartphone or to your tablet. And basically you can use this in combination with your phone or tablet in order to bat detect, because most of the processing power comes then from a free application that is used, and you can use it whenever you get out because you're always taking up your phone, and it's pretty great. Firstly, the sound quality is pretty okay for what it is. It's very affordable, and you can basically get a lot of mileage with this and the free app. So let's say, for example, we have a Android tablet here, but of course you can use it also for iOS, as I heard. So basically what it does, you hook it up, you have a free application, and this thing basically picks up anything around in the ultrasonic range. And because most of the processing power then comes in from this application and from your tablet or smart device, it's pretty great as a bat detecting type gear. Why? Well, because you can use different bat detecting modes such as heterodyne, auto heterodyne, RTE, or time expansion, and you can record those. Let's say, for example, if you go to a recording here, let's say this recording, for some reason, let's just see what it is, and you can see this is a recording of a bat that basically that the Ecometer Touch 2 recorded. And you can record them, you can have different recordings, but the good thing is that also it has a kind of very decent auto ID. And let's say in this example, it detected a common pipistrelle, which you can basically look at its lovely little portrait here, or you can go to a Wikipedia page and you can basically check out all about this particular species. So it's pretty great if you're totally new to bats and you want to learn more about these creatures, about the different species and what sounds they make. Then the auto ID is pretty solid. Although with everything here, you need to double check, and this is where countless hours studying the echolocation calls of different species, so you can then basically double check if the auto ID works correctly, but it works pretty nice. So another cool thing here that you can do is you do have like a GPS view, which I use a lot of times just because I would like to know, oh, okay, so this particular species likes to hang around here while this particular species likes to hang around there. So yeah, it's all in all, it's a very good package that you can use. And this is, again, it's not only to get those sound files that you can then basically transfer to your computer, and you get like in full spectrum, which you can slow down, change the sample rate, blah, 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 whatever you wish. But it's a cool thing because you also, you do have like a free version of their monitoring program, or let's say analysis program, that's called Kaleidoscope. And you can throw these files in, and you can basically change their speed and everything, and try to get a very clean, well, no, I wouldn't say really clean, but like a very usable recording that you can then further manipulate and use that. So it's not only for to get the recordings like I did, because when I bought it I thought, oh, I'm gonna get a few of those nice chirps and those nice little clappy claps that bats make. But now it's I'm way deeper in the rabbit hole and mostly talk about bats for this whole summer. So yeah, it is dangerous in that preposition. But yeah, so if you want to listen to it, I'm gonna put a couple of samples right after this, and you can check it out how they sound. So yeah, moving onward, we have the humble heterodyne bat detector. And heterodyne bat detectors are more affordable usually than full spectrum or frequency division or time expansion detectors, because I think they use a much simpler technology how to translate the echolocations into audible range. And you can get them fairly cheap, and you can basically manually teach yourself in what frequency the different species lie, and it's a great learning tool. Now, one thing that I have here, and I think it's special and I absolutely love it, is the batscanner stereo by Elakon. And this has two of these microphones here. So one microphone this side, one microphone that. And usually, bioacoustic monitoring devices and stuff like that is usually mono, for obvious reasons. But when you have stereo, for us sonic nerd geeks, it just opens up a whole new world, because now you can process that it sounds pretty great. It's very, very moist, very clappy, very everything, and it's awesome. Plus it's very, very small. You can just use it. You have a little speaker here if you want to, listen to it without any headphones, but you can plug the headphones here as well. Plus you can basically change the frequencies, although if you just use it on auto mode, the thing is that it will basically do the auto heterodyne thing, where it's just gonna listen to the frequencies and listen to the bats, and if the frequency matches and the bat is in that particular frequency when it comes to echolocating or social calls, it will pinpoint to that and you will only hear that. So you don't need to move around and everything. Plus, a very, very good thing here is that, it's pretty, it's pretty surreal when you put headphones on and you look at a bat, if it's light enough outside, and you can basically follow them as they move along from left to right, or in space, and it will become a very, very, very cool moment, at least in the beginning when I tried it out, because it was just like, whoa. So this is a pretty great thing. A bad thing about it though is that it's not a recorder, it's just a bat detector. So meaning that you would maybe have to use like a little zoom H1 here in combination with this, just so you can record them. So going from this into this, and then record them from that if you want to record anything from this. And usually with bat detecting, it's pretty great because, you know, just record it all the time, because you might miss something that sounds really, really, really cool. And this is usually how it is. So here are a couple of sound bites that I captured using this little device. So another option that might be cool is the ultrasonic microphones. So these are very affordable clippy microphones from Mic Booster, and these are basically ultrasonic versions. So they will go up to around 100 kilohertz, meaning that you will get a very, very wide range that's above our hearing range in order to let's say record bat sounds. Now these are stereo, meaning, you know, it's a stereo pair, so you can put them as you wish. The one thing that I will have to say here is that beware that if you use such microphones, of course your recording device must support something that's above our typical 44.1 or 48 kilohertz sample rate. So let's say this thing, Zoom F3 here, has a sample rate that goes up to 192 kilohertz. So, you know, you can use them with this particular thing, and it's a great pair when it comes to this. Now, another bad, well, I wouldn't say really bad, but let's say another, limit that these particular microphones have is that they are okay for, let's say, species that are in the mid-range of their call. So let's say pipistrelles, which are, you know, depending on the species of pipistrelle, they go from, like, let's say 40 or 39 to, let's say, 60 kilohertz. So these will pick up just okay. But because of the Nyquist frequencies, you know, you might lose the tail end. Again, if you're using it to record noctules, which have a much lower echolocation call, these are pretty great when it comes to that. However, you know, if you're thinking about recording horseshoe or lesser horseshoe bats, which, you know, go to 100, 110 kilohertz, these are probably not gonna be enough. So you're probably gonna need something else. However, these are pretty great because they're affordable and are pretty decent when it comes to then further using those audio files, so you can basically, you know, mumble them up in Logic or in Ableton, whatever you use. So yeah, here are a couple of audio samples using these particular microphones. So if you want a rather capable DIY bat detector, there's an option with the teensybat here, which is basically a little device which has a teensy microcontroller inside that's hooked up to a software, and this is then basically It's basically a little bat detector you can have around, and it's quite capable for what it is. Now, an important thing here is that I probably screwed up this microphone quite a bit, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, so I'll have to, invest a bit of time in order to get this thing fixed. However, I still thought it might be good to basically show what you can do with this particular detector, because you can detect them in different modes. You do have quite an extensive way of setting it up. You can use it as a passive detector as well and stuff like that. So yeah, it is great. It's also battery powered. You can put a micro SD card inside of it, meaning that you can record them on the go as you go. And it's not that big. It's quite great. It looks pretty neat. The problem is that I probably screwed up with my soldering here, and I would need to replace or at least repair this thing on my own. However, if you want a DIY option, this thing exists. I'll put a link down below, and you can check it out and see if it's good for your own needs. And I'll have to repair this one, so no audio samples from this, I'm afraid. Another option here is also using a passive recorder, and I do have a very affordable one from Acoustics, and it's called the audioMoth. And this is a very, very small device. As you can see, it's just like a little PCB. It has a microphone, it has a couple of more components, an SD slot, and it's hooked up to 3 AA batteries. And basically what it does is that you take this, you hook it up to your computer, you program it so it records from a certain point in time to another certain point in time in different intervals using different frequency ranges. Whatever you wish, you can program it however you want. And you basically take, let's say you may take a case such as this one, and you just put it into the case. You go out, you leave it somewhere, like on a tree line or something like that, or you just put it somewhere and you go home. And then in a couple of nights or a couple of months, however you set it up, you come back, you take the device, you go back home, you open it up, you take the SD card out, and you check all of your recordings. And of course, this is not just meant for bat monitoring. Even though it's pretty capable of recording bat echolocation and social calls, because it's just like, it's very, it goes way beyond our hearing range when it comes to sample rates, let's say. But the thing is, it's pretty great also for other stuff. I usually use it as a scout locator, meaning that, if I find a place that I find particularly interesting, I'll go there, I'll set up my audioMoth, and then in a couple of nights I'll come for it. I'll check the audio files. If something catches my attention at that particular time, and then there's a chance that might happen again, I'll go again with more proper recording gear. Therefore, I scout the area way before I go with the expensive stuff. But anyways, this is pretty great when it comes to monitoring everything. The downside is that it's quite noisy, so you're gonna have a lot of denoising when it comes to getting it out. Also, everything like here is 16-bit, so it's not the most dynamically ranged one. But if you do a bit of denoising on this thing, it sounds pretty decent. So if you're not into, I'm gonna stay the whole night recording bats, whatever, just leave that there, and then use whatever it recorded and just get the cool sounds that you want out of these and use it away. So yeah, audioMoth is a pretty great, and here are a couple of samples that I have captured using this particular device. So as you can see and hear, most of this equipment and gear is rather affordable. However, noise will be prevalent. I can't really vouch for more professional tire gear, which might be more clear in sound, but for my own sonic needs and basic monitoring, these do quite enough. On the next episode, we will go into the field and see how I use these gadgets to get some nice batty sounds, while an episode after that will focus more on the sound design aspect. So do subscribe so you don't miss it. You know, if you want to, I just don't feel pressured. But anyways, if you want to support me directly, there's a Patreon link in the description where you can join and get exclusive access to content and sample libraries and more cool stuff that you might find enjoyable. But most importantly, do have a great rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you might be watching this. And I'll see you next time. Take care.